Before 1914, getting a ship from New York to San Francisco meant sailing all the way around South America. That journey took weeks. Then one waterway changed everything. The Panama Canal didn't just save time and money. It literally rewrote the rules of global trade and reshaped which nations would become economic superpowers. And today, we're talking about how one 51-mile stretch of water became the most strategically important choke point on the entire planet. Think about the scale of this for a second. Before the canal opened, a ship traveling from Europe to Asia had two options. You could go east around Africa, or you could go west around Cape Horn at the tip of South America. Both routes took months. The canal cut that journey down to just a few days. Suddenly, shipping costs plummeted, trade volume exploded, and ports that had been isolated backwaters became major economic hubs overnight. This wasn't just convenient. This was transformative. The canal fundamentally altered which countries could compete in global markets and which ones would get left behind. Here's what I mean. Before the canal, Pacific and Atlantic trade were basically separate systems. You had different shipping lanes, different prices, different players dominating each ocean. The canal connected them. It created one unified global trading network. And that network favored countries positioned to take advantage of it. Japan, China, the United States. These nations suddenly had direct access to markets they'd never been able to reach efficiently before, and their economies grew because of it. If you're interested in how geography shapes global power, hit that subscribe button. We're breaking down these patterns constantly, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Now here's the thing. The canal wasn't just about saving distance. It was about power. Control the canal, and you control a massive chunk of world trade. We're talking about roughly 6% of all global maritime trade flowing through that waterway every single year. That's hundreds of billions of dollars, thousands of ships. And whoever manages that choke point has enormous leverage. The United States understood this immediately. That's why they fought so hard to build it, why they maintained control of it for nearly a century, and why they only handed it over to Panama in 1999 after massive international pressure. Strategic geography matters. It always has. And the Panama Canal is the perfect example of how controlling a critical piece of real estate can translate into economic and political influence. Think about it this way. When you control a choke point, you influence global prices, you influence shipping routes, you influence which countries thrive and which ones struggle. That's real power. The canal's impact goes way beyond just making shipping faster. It completely restructured global supply chains. Companies realized they could source materials from Asia, manufacture in Central America, and ship to North America in a fraction of the time it used to take. That opened up entirely new business models. It allowed smaller countries to participate in global trade in ways they never could before. Panama itself is the perfect example. Before the canal, Panama was a minor backwater. Today, it's a major financial hub with one of the highest standards of living in Central America. The canal transformed their entire economy. But here's the catch. That same strategic importance makes the canal vulnerable. It's a choke point, and choke points can be weaponized. If conflict ever broke out in the region, global trade would suffer immediately. That's why nations around the world care so much about what happens in Panama. It's not just about Panama. It's about their economies. Let me give you a concrete example of why this matters today. In 2021, a single cargo ship called the Ever Given got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal for just 6 days. 6 days. And it cost the global economy an estimated $9 to $12 billion. It disrupted supply chains worldwide. Prices went up, delivery times extended, and this was just one ship in one canal for less than a week. Now imagine if the Panama Canal faced a similar crisis, or worse, if it became inaccessible for weeks or months. The economic impact would be catastrophic. That's why countries like China have been investing heavily in alternative shipping routes. They're building ports and infrastructure in Africa and South America specifically to reduce their dependence on these critical choke points. They learned the lesson that geography creates vulnerability, and vulnerability creates risk. So let me break this down for you. The Panama Canal didn't just change trade routes, It changed which nations could become global powers. It changed how companies organize their supply chains. It changed the flow of goods, money, and influence across the entire planet. And it shows you something crucial about geopolitics. Geography isn't destiny, but it's incredibly important. The countries and regions that control critical resources, critical routes, and critical choke points have disproportionate power in the global system. That's a pattern you see again and again throughout history. And understanding it helps you understand why certain nations are wealthy, why certain regions matter more than others, and how the world really works beneath the surface. The Panama Canal is just one example, but it's a perfect one. It's concrete, it's measurable, and it shows you exactly how geography shapes economics and politics. If you want to understand the world, you have to understand places like this. Subscribe now and watch our next video on how geography shapes global economics. You're going to see patterns you never noticed before.